everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Leader's Edge. I'm your host, Steve Steele, where we dive into insights and principles that will supercharge your leadership and ignite your personal growth. Now, whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a leader navigating change, or a seasoned pro, this show's for you. Each episode is packed with practical strategies designed to elevate your mindset and amplify your leadership impact. So get ready for some actionable tips that can put you into practice immediately. And a huge shout out to all of our amazing listeners. Thank you so much for your unwavering support. So let's get started and unlock your true potential. My guest today is the CEO and founder of Caregiver Mental Wellness Incorporated. It's a charitable nonprofit. She's a keynote speaker, a thought leader on invisible caregiving, social crisis, and urgent overlooked force driving chronic stress and declining mental health, workforce instability, and long-term risks such as disease and addiction. This hidden crisis directly affects our workplaces and impacts our most vulnerable, our aging, disabled, and adults and children with special needs and chronic illnesses. As the family caregiver declines, the care of the most vulnerable deteriorates. Caregivers are 70% of our modern workforce. Her insight comes from lived experience as an 18-year-old caregiver with 8 years of research into how caregiving impacts families, communities, the workforce, and organizational performance. With 25 plus years as a corporate trainer and former VP of HR and operations, she brings a strategic, data-driven lens to the intersection of caregiving, mental wellness, and community impact in the workforce retention. She lives in Concord, has 2 adult kids and 4 grandkids. Welcome, everyone, from the green room, Miss Carolyn Dowdy. Hi, Carolyn.
Hey, how are you today? Hey, how are you?
Today? I'm good. That's quite an impact that you made on that bio. That was pretty powerful. That was pretty powerful. I really loved it. And I know that last week when we talked about this show, we just had an enormous amount of time that we spent talking to each other and sharing with each other. But as usual, on the Leader's Edge, what I like to do with our guests, I like to bring them in, and I really like for them to tell their story about how they really got into the business that they're in, what drove them to that, and what is the impact that was made in their life to help them get to where they're going today. So tell us your story, Carolyn. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what happened to get you with Caregiver Wellness.
Well, it all began back when I was in my 40s and 50s, and I was working, I was helping open a bank in Atlanta, and I had 2 sick parents, and I was trying to manage them like many adult children are doing. And so I went through that whole period of time, and some days I didn't even feel like I could walk, because it's not that you don't love your parents or you don't want to help them. It's just you only have so much time and energy. Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward now until when my early retirement. I walked in one night. My husband had come in to eat. I walked to get some water. I walked back, and he was having a massive stroke. And he just started floundering all over the chair, and his eyes were open. He's hollering. He couldn't speak. And so I looked at his mouth, and I thought, oh, it's drooping. He's having a stroke. So we had to call 911. It took him 30 minutes to get there. They took him to a small hospital, and they couldn't help him. So they had to airlift him to Lexington, Kentucky. So he was in stroke stage about 3.5 hours. So it actually damaged a lot of his communication center. He couldn't read, he couldn't write, and he could walk. I was very thankful he could walk, and he couldn't say a lot of words. So that experience ignited me to save myself as now a caregiver without a manual. It ignited me to help other caregivers, because that experience, the first 3 months, I didn't know if I was even going to survive. So I started doing research. And during that research, I realized, hey, you're called a caregiver. Well, during that 10 years taking care of my parents from a distance, I was a part-time caregiver. I didn't know caregiver burnout was real, and I was near burnout during that period of time trying to work. And so I just got ignited that first year. And I think I remember the exact time that I actually realized I had to do something for caregivers is because I met this lady that her husband had aphasia and had a massive stroke, but he couldn't walk. And
Really?
I was always so thankful that my husband was mobile and he could still walk. And I thought, I've got to help caregivers. I mean, I've got to do something, but I didn't know what it was. So for 5 years, I did all this research on.
I may have missed this, but did you say you were working at the time as well when you were taking care of your husband?
We had a farm. We had an alpaca farm,
okay.
And we did.
All right.
We actually had a business, families and whatever.
Yeah.
So we had a farm, and I was running the farm. So anyway, that all instigated me starting this road and finding out about caregiver burnout. And I waited about 5 years before we opened and founded the nonprofit. And during that period of time, I realized that it's not only elderly that are caregivers, they're taking care of the elderly. It started going with my HR background. I started realizing, hey, these parents caring for children with special needs, these children with chronic illnesses in the U.S., I started seeing all these numbers, and I thought, God, this is impacting our workforce. And so I really started digging into it at that point and realized that it is actually a social crisis that we're not talking about.
To be very honest with you, before you and I met, I really hadn't thought much about it either. And I remember of course, my father passed early in 2006, and I didn't have to really do much caregiving for him. My mother passed in 2021, right after the pandemic, and there was some caregiving that had to go there, but it fell on my shoulders of my sister because I was in Texas and my sister lived just down the street from my mom. So there was a lot of things that she had to take care of with my mom. And obviously I couldn't take care of her son, but there was a lot of personal needs and all kinds of things that she had to take care of. And I remember how she used to look at that, or used to say, to the fact that some days that she was just wore out because she also had, a part-time work, and not only that, but taking care of my mom full time. So it was a lot of extra work on her. And so I remember that, and that's what triggered me to think, oh, I've got to talk to Carolyn Dowdy about this, because this is an amazing subject, because it's certainly out there. And I know that, and I think you made a statement, I think I was reading somewhere, where about 2030, the baby boomers will be 65 or older. And that's accelerating pretty dramatically. And it puts a big demand on family caregivers.
Yeah, exactly. And Dr. Fuller, he's a Harvard professor that wrote a research back in 2019, and he said that if companies do not start implementing caring environments by 2030, which is 4 years, he said they're going to have a difficult time retaining and attracting top talent, and they are going to lose billions of dollars, because that 73 million baby boomers have got to be taken care of, and we actually don't have enough people being born to take care of them. And they're going to be 65 or older already with health conditions. So this situation of caring for our elderly is going to get worse the next two decades. And that doesn't even factor in our children. 1 in 31 in the U.S. are on the autism spectrum. This sandwich generation that are working from 35 to 55 are struggling. We've also in the U.S., we've got 40 to 60% of our children that have chronic illnesses such as diabetes, cancer, autism, and not autism, but asthma and other things. So we've got to pull in and think about all the statistics. And this used to be like a family thing, like, that's a family problem. It's personal. We leave it at work, home. Now it's impacting the workforce, because 70% of the caregivers are either part-time or full-time caregivers. And we call someone caring for their children parents. We call them caregivers or care partners. And see, people don't label themselves that. So the list of statistics where we had 63 million caregivers in the U.S.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, those 63 million caregivers may be understated because 50% of caregivers call themselves a parent,
Right.
an adult child, a husband, a wife, a friend, another kinship. So that number is probably doubled. So that's up to 35 to 40% of the U.S. population if we count the underestimated. So we've got
that is a lot of responsibility out there. That is huge. That's huge. Is that what you would call the silver tsunami? I think I read that in some.
Well, the 73 million people are calling the silver tsunami. I'm calling bringing in all these children that our sandwich generation are caring for. The sandwich generation are caring for aging parents and kids and everything else in life.
And trying to work a job.
That's right.
Oh,
and
my
so,
gosh.
Yeah, so that's why we as companies have got to implement caring, humanized environments, not just performance. We got to think about caring. And that's what Dr. Fuller said at Harvard, that we've got to implement caring environments. Because really, if you think about it, if you've got 70% of the caregivers already that are in the workforce, the forward-thinking leaders are going to start looking at these statistics closer, because it's costing them billions in retraining, attaining. And see, another thing they don't always think about is it takes longer to retrain now that we're more technical. And so I think the U.S. statistic for retraining, rebranding, attracting and all that is almost $1 trillion now in the U.S. And I don't know what piece of that is totally related to the caregiver part of their employees. But that's already costing them almost $1 trillion.
So when you say, Carolyn, that it's going to affect the workforce or affect the companies within the workforce, and because you've got caregivers out there, they're going to take care of their family, they're going to take care of their parents, they're going to take care of their children, and their job is good. Are you saying the job is going to fall last on the list? And so because it falls last on the list, that the workforce or those companies out there need to provide some kind of healthcare or caregiver, within their company to try to help these caregivers have a better opportunity? Is that what you're saying? To take care of their family and work in it?
I'm not saying that their company is last on their priority list. The way I look at it is we have got to think about, if we work, our sandwich generation are having a problem with work-life harmony. And the way I explain it in my training is we have a 9-inch plate that we're eating out of. That's our time and energy. Okay. But the problem is with all of us is we have a 12-inch plate of responsibilities.
Wow. Yeah.
And that throws our body staying in that condition of having a 12-inch plate of responsibilities, no matter what they are, whether it's our children that are sick or our elderly or working, stress or whatever. That keeps our body in long-term chronic stress, which is 6 months or longer. And the problem with that is it can lead to sickness, diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and other things. And it can also lead to addiction to drugs, alcohol, gambling, food. So the very people that we all say we're going to take care of our aging and our kids, our most vulnerable, they are the ones that suffer when we allow our caregivers to get burnt out.
Right. It's beautiful. So let me ask you a question. So let's say you walk into a company and you're talking to a leader and you're talking about caregiver burnout, but they say, well, that's just a personal problem at home. We really don't have anything to do that. How would you talk to them directly about, what would you say to that leader?
What I would say to them is just have top management or your CFO do a little digging in the statistics. And find out the real hard numbers, because it's affecting your absenteeism. It's affecting your productivity. It's like I saw one stat, 18% productivity for caregivers loss compared to other employees. It affects your turnover. and it affects your lost leadership capacity, because a lot of these sandwich generation, this 35 to 45 or 55-year-old, they're our main pipeline that are running our company and bringing them up the ladder. So you've got these people, and Dr. Fuller said people are going to be looking for caring companies. So the companies that get in line, because we're already feeling the symptoms of all this happening, the companies that get in line, they're going to be able, by having a caring and a humanized company and changing the environment from the.
I think she froze there. She comes back on real quick.
61%.
There we are. Yeah. We got your voice back, Carolyn, but we lost you as far as,
Okay.
There you are. There you are. You're good now. Okay. We got you back.
Great.
Yeah.
Dr. Fuller said that we need to implement the caring companies, that we're going to lose our top talent, and our top talent are probably, a lot of them are going to be women. Women are 61% of the caregivers.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be looking for caring companies that care about them and realize their stress with this work-life harmony with their kids and their aging and all that.
Right.
And so it does, this is something. I get on my soapbox and I've got all these ideas. I mean, we need to be teaching this to leaders in our colleges, that they're going to have to go in under the new way the modern workforce is and the demographic changes. They are going to have caring companies. They've got to think about these families, because otherwise we're not going to be compete globally if we start losing our top talent. I mean, this is affecting our workforce already. They're saying that caregivers are going part-time. They're leaving. There's things that are already happening. I mean, I had you and I talked about, why don't people know it? I haven't heard about all this. I had a researcher tell me about a couple of months ago. She says, Carolyn, everything you're saying is right. It's just you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
good.
I didn't say it to her, but we may be ahead of the curve on what we're talking about, but companies are feeling the signs and symptoms right now. I mean, it's happening, and we're 4 years out from what Dr. Fuller did on his research.
That is freaking amazing to me. I mean, and the thing is that companies are feeling it, but do they actually see it? They may be feeling it right now, but do they actually see it, Carolyn? I mean,
that's why we're bringing awareness. That's why we are out there, what we're doing. And me, as with a VP, I understand that I've went through all these a lot of employee issues. I've experienced it. And we have got to get to the top management. Like, I spoke to a group of 50 middle management, and they're like a deer in the headlights. They haven't heard it. And are they going to go to top management? Because unless they go to top management and they implement a new culture of caring about their employees, it's not going to happen. So you've got to get to that top management and show them statistics and show them the stats of where you've got to figure not just the hard costs that you see on your general ledger. You've got to show them productivity loss, absenteeism, healthcare claims, how many claims are going up, how do we have a lot of mental health issues. I mean, they need to look at all the statistics and they can get and put together the real cost. I had something in one of my slides that said that companies that put in wellness programs have a 25% return on investment.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Because they focus. Now, that wasn't a caregiver program, because your wellness program is going to look a little different when you implement a wellness and include caregivers, what they need.
Right. It's a little bit different there. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, because I'm anxious to really see when we really dive into what that looks like. But I guess real quick, Carolyn, we got a couple of minutes here. How does a manager identify someone who's struggling in the workplace, and what are them, as far as someone who's maybe struggling with that and they don't know where to go with it?
Okay, the first thing I want to say is they're going to run from you, most of them, if you call them a caregiver, because that's a stigma word.
Is that right?
Especially men. You say, hey, you caregiver, your wife. Well, that's going to turn them off real fast, and they're going to withdraw and not talk to you probably. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother conversation of the psychology of how you approach employees. But the way that I would say right now, if you were a supervisor or manager, go somewhere and you can go on our website and look at our training program and watch the slide on the signs and symptoms of burnout.
Absolutely. And I want to, let me say real quick, if you look up at the top left corner of your screen, you'll see Carolyn's QR code there, or you can go straight to that website. Just take your camera on your phone, click to it, it'll take you straight there, and you can you can see those slides and read all about it. As I've been to the website, it's really a great informational website. It's got a lot of things. So yeah.
Yeah. So, like they're physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. Maybe you notice that they're irritable and arguing a lot in the teams, because when you get into burnout, you don't have very much patience. And so people may be feeding back that they're not doing their job, or they don't act like they care. And so if you go to our website and you watch the Caregiver Lifeline and then go to that slide about the signs and symptoms of burnout, that's the things I'd start looking for. There's 2 pages of signs and symptoms. And then that way you can call them in and say, I just wanted to check in with you. What's going on? You don't know if they have a stigma about caregiving.
Right.
So that way, say like, you're a caregiver.
Yeah. Well, Carolyn, we're going to dive more into this in just a few minutes. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. Okay. So hold your thought. Be ready to dive back in. We'll be right back to the Leader's Edge. Are you ready to elevate your organization with a team of transformational leaders? Do you want to attract and nurture top talent while enhancing communication and productivity across generations? Hi, I'm Steve Steele, co-host of The Leader's Edge, and your coach with the Maxwell Leadership Team. My program equips leaders with essential skills and resources to lead, coach, and communicate effectively, ensuring everyone thrives. With tailored insights and proven strategies, I'm here to help your entire organization succeed. So reach out today at growthinleadership@gmail.com or visit johncmaxwellgroup.com/Steve Steele. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leader's Edge. I'm Steve Steele, your host, and with our special guest today, Carolyn Dowdy. Carolyn, thank you so much for that first segment. It was really beautiful. I love talking about this caregiver wellness. I'm just going to tell you a little story. So, Carolyn, I remember about a year ago, I went through a complete burnout in my own particular job that I was working in. Actually, it was a little longer than a year ago, but I went into a burnout where I had to take some time off just to try to reevaluate who I was as a human being, as a person. And I was just burning out. I wasn't taking care of anybody. I was trying to take care of myself, but I had that burnout there. So I understand what that burnout feels like. And I understand how exhausting it is. And you just don't know where to turn or how to go and how to move forward. So I can just imagine if you're taking care of somebody else, you're trying to do your job, you've got kids, you got to do dinner at night, you got to get the kids to school, you got all these things that you've got to do. How that can really affect an individual, and how it really can affect a person who's really trying to do the best thing they can for their parents, do the best thing they can for their family, for their kids. And as you said, I think 61% of them are actually women who are doing the caregiving.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And about 40%, as you can see, men. Right. And a lot of, women are taught by our conditioning as we grow up, you are the one that takes care of the family. Mm-hmm. And so the mindset of the man, that they're in there and they're going to be the provider. They're going to go out and make sure everything's right for the family. So these men that are caregivers, they get really stressed out because they see what their wives are going through. They don't really sometimes know how to. the men a lot of times feel at a loss because they don't know how to help the family. And men really gravitate to what we teach, because they can go out to our website, they can look at the strategies, information, and the
we lost her right mid thought. So we'll get her back here in just a second. So we'll wait just a minute here to see what happens. And it might probably be an internet connection, or there she's back. Okay, good. You can finish that thought, Carolyn.
Hey.
That was great.
One of the things, like I said, is men are one of the fastest demographics that are becoming caregivers, and it's 40% now. But men take care of our families. They go out and they do what they do. They go out and kill the animals and bring food to the family, back in the cave days. That they still have that mentality. They feel at a loss when they can't help their wife. They don't know how to help them. And then some mentalities are in cultures are the women are responsible. So there's all kinds of dynamics going on in these families. So we've just, the one thing that I talk to people about is that we have to get a society that is proactive in teaching well-being and self-care. Because what we've done is we've got a structure of reactive. Okay, we will do something when you have mental health issues. Here's your EAP program from work. Call this number with crisis, and you call this for a therapist. And I looked at the stats, and only between different stats, but between 6 to 12% of people even use that EAP program, employee assistance program, because they think some people think that things are fed back to the company about them, and it will hurt the trajectory of their job or jeopardize their job. And that is not the way it is, because they're under HIPAA. Those HR departments just get groups of stats about who's using it. They don't get individuals. And that's a training issue within your company, is to make employees aware that they have these programs. But what we do at our organization, our nonprofit, is we teach self-care to help prevent. We give strategies, techniques, the way you think. There's things you can do that don't take a lot of time. Like you can do mindfulness, and we teach that. We teach how to get out of those worry cycles, because most of our stress that we have comes from between our two ears, and we start getting control of our thoughts, and that's what we teach you to do. It minimizes the energy you waste on worry and trying to handle things in the past.
Absolutely.
And things that are predicted for the future, and you don't know what that is. We teach you all these different techniques. And the reason I'm able to sit here, take care of a disabled husband full-time that's declining with dementia, run everything in my home, including a tree falling on it last week, and run and start a nonprofit. And I'm older, I have the energy to do all this, is because of the things that I teach that will actually help anyone under stress that's on our website. We just focus it on the caregivers.
And when you talk about that stress, there's really, and I want our viewers to understand this. There's a direct line between caregiver stress and employee turnover. Isn't that right?
Yes, because what's happening is they just can't carry the load anymore. A lot of them are going to part-time. These caregivers, they won't disclose to their employer a lot of times that they are struggling, because they don't want to lose the trajectory of their job. They don't want to lose their job. About 60-something% of caregivers are under financial stress. They don't want to be judged by their coworkers. They have maybe cultural, or it may be for whatever reason, the word mental health is a stigma, and they distance from that. They distance from the word sometimes caregiver, because they don't know they're labeled that, and it's a stigma, especially men, don't want to be called caregivers. Maybe they're taking care of their wife with cancer. They are their spouse. I love my spouse. I'm taking care of her. I'm not a caregiver. So there's a lot of stigma and there's a lot of psychological reasons and dynamics that we're not reaching the caregivers. But when they go home, the reason that we a lot don't even understand, if you've never been a caregiver or taken care of anyone sick, they walk out of work, they go home, they may have a child with a feeding tube and the nurse is leaving and they're taking over. I think it's like average of 21 hours a week a caregiver does care. And it could be higher than that depending on how much their care recipient needs. But they go home and they still got kids to get in bed, get their bath, get homework. That may be like me. I walked in the door. My mom called me and cried, talked an hour every night when I'd walk in the door because dad couldn't walk and he was falling and they was calling 911 and I'm trying to manage them from the side. That's why it's hard to have empathy when you don't see what they're doing when they go home and they don't share it. They're not going to share their personal problems with you and tell you. What are they going to do if I asked you how you're doing today, Steve?
Yeah, they're fine.
I'm fine.
Yep.
They put the mask on. Yep. They walk into work. They do the best they can. But you start seeing the signs and symptoms of what they're going through if you observe them as a supervisor.
And I have seen this, Carolyn, when there's situations that's similar to that. I saw this situation where a mom and a son worked together in an area of same employee, and the mom got ill, and he had to take care of her more. And so when the point came down to the fact that he was having to take care of, he was an older son. I think he was single, and his mom was taking care of his mom like he should. I believe that. I'm a man of faith, and I think as we grow older, we should take care of our parents. I think that's one thing we should honor them by is help to take care of their care if it's all possible. But I saw, him go through it, and he was put under so much pressure on his job that he wasn't, there was rumors about, he was getting written up for this or written up for that, or they were talking about, well, he's not going to make it much longer. And all these little rumors, and they weren't coming necessarily from management so much, but from other employees that would hear things, probably from management over talking or something like that. And that puts a big pressure on an individual if they think they might lose their job because they got to take care of a caregiver. So Carolyn, we got to fix this. We got to fix this somehow. And I want you to tell us, how are we going to fix it? How are we going to fix that in the workplace? What does caregiver wellness do? What do we actually get into?
Well, the main thing, like I'm on this show bringing awareness, we have got to take stigma out of being called a caregiver. And the other big thing, these are high level things that I have on my list. We have got to have a central recognized definition of caregiver. Under that, aging, kids, special needs, all of them, because they're in our workforce, and we need to have a central definition of that, and we bring it to the society's awareness of what it is. Even the researchers are having a hard time putting research together because, like some cancer organizations call the caregiver the co-survivor. Okay. There's so many names of caregivers. And so that's the number one thing that I have on my mind. We have got to bring awareness, and we're an awareness program. The other thing is I wrote, because I told you I was in HR and I've done all this, now it's been 8 years of research. I wrote a manual, detailed manual to tell companies how to implement a caring environment. It's called Caregiver Advocate Business Program. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a few things that's in it. The main thing is you've got to change the culture. You've got to have it driven from the top down leadership, because to put the money into making the changes, you're going to have to get to top management and show them the hard stats we talked about earlier. That's one of the first things that you need to do. And when we put in companies, we're going to have to change our training. We're going to have to train supervisors and on the empathy that they need to have. They need to have it in orientation for maybe a 3-minute video on watching people be caregivers at home and who they are, their parents, taking care of special needs, chronically ill, their learning disabilities maybe. Then there's our adult children over there trying to manage parents in their home. They may have both parents living with them, or they maybe manage them from a distance. So we are going to have to build empathy within the company. Mm-hmm. We need to put in wellness programs that include wellness, but also things that caregivers need. And some of the things in the reports that I read was they want flex time, because some caregivers may need to come in late and leave late, or come in early and leave early.
That's what I was going to ask you. What does that flex time look like?
That's what it looks like. It's like beef, instead of being so hard-nosed and say it's got to be this way, say, this is when you ask people, what do you need to lighten your load? What can we do?
Right.
They may say, I need to come in late. I had a lady in the 80s. I didn't know what autism was. I'd never heard the word. I was over HR. And I had a supervisor come in and say, we've got to tell her, and everybody's complaining, she's always late. But she also told me she's in domestic violence situation and she has a disabled child.
That's a whole nother thing too.
That's right. And I didn't even know and so I called the employee in, and I was compassionate to her because I knew her background story, but she never told me. She never once told me she's in domestic violence and had a disabled child. And what I did is I just talked to her and said, do the best you can. Because at that point in time, I never thought about giving her flex time or all that kind of stuff, But I never did anything. She was one of our best employees. And so you have to look at it, humanize it by look at their situation, say, what do you need? And companies may say, we're not going to do that. We're performance-based. That's why you got to get to the top and change the culture of how they're looking at it. And the other thing is, if you put in programs and like your EAP, you put it in and you'd say, there it is. We gave it to our employees. We did what we're supposed to do. If the employees don't see their top management supervisors using those programs and make it okay to talk about that we have families at home and we're in a caring environment, they're not still going to disclose because they don't trust companies.
Exactly.
Companies are not empathetic.
Exactly. They're afraid they're going to be they're going to be, they're going to do something to take their time away, or they're going to cut their hours, or they're going to, they're going to get written up if they don't do a job correctly. And that is so true. I've seen that in all the areas that I work with top companies. I saw that very same thing because people are afraid. And even if you get an employee to look into a program, to look into maybe a coaching program that a company may have to just get some relief on being able to talk, they don't. At that point, they still don't really want to release the information. They really don't want to. They keep it so private, and so they don't really. Sometimes you don't really know what's going on at home.
Yeah, and what we're saying a lot, what we're saying a lot of time to our employees in our marketing material is not the what we're saying to our employees in marketing material and in orientation is not the reality on the ground in the policies.
Right.
You've got to take that, whatever you've got in your marketing, and make sure that you're training and following through and have that culture, because employees are going to pick up on it like that.
Oh, they do.
And they're also, they're not going to share with you what's going on with them. They're just going to try to survive where it doesn't hurt the trajectory of their position and all that.
Exactly. And you're so right. Employees don't necessarily trust big companies. They really don't. Wow. So we're going to talk about this more, Carolyn. We're going to go into, when we come back from our commercial break, we're going to talk about it a little bit more, because then I want to dive into it and I want to see what you actually can bring to the table for a company. We'll talk a little bit briefly about that, and then tell us how people can get a hold of you. So we'll be right back to Leader's Edge.
All right, podcasters, let's be honest for a second. If your show sounds like it was recorded inside of a tin can, in your cousin's basement, in a van down by the river with your dog barking in the background, it's time for an upgrade. That's where 216 Creator Studios comes in, the home of real production, real people who actually know what all those shiny buttons do. They've got pro mics, top tier editing, and lighting that makes everyone look like they slept 8 hours, even if you didn't. Whether you're just starting out or you've been podcasting since people were still saying, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up. 216 Creator Studio helps you sound crisp, confident, and ready for the big leagues. So stop recording in your car, stop arguing with your USB mic, and get into 216 Creator Studios, where your podcast finally sounds as good as you think it does.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leader's Edge. I am Steve Steele, your host, and our special guest today, Carolyn Dowdy. Thank you, Carolyn, for that last segment. A lot of great information there. But Carolyn, I want to talk about what actually, when you go into a company, when you go into a business, how do you help these companies? What do you offer? What is it that they can take from you? Because some CEOs may say, I have no idea this is going on, you know? And so if you were going to walk into a company, what would you tell a CEO to do tomorrow morning? I mean, how would you handle that? What does that look like? And what does your company offer? And why I'm saying this, check at the QR code at the top right-hand corner of your screen, or excuse me, top left-hand corner of your screen. And when you can click on that, you can get to Carolyn's website, and she answers so many questions. It has videos and all kinds of very enlightening information. So you can check it out there. But Carolyn, what do you tell a CEO?
Well, the first thing I want to tell him is say, if you want to be able to compete on the global market or just in your local market, you need to have your CFO check the stats out of this caregiver crisis and then come back and talk to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, because the thing is they're not, if they don't see the stats, you know how it is, top management's a lot about the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so it's got to come through to them. And, you know, that's what I would tell them. That's one of the first things. I mean, I do training or I do presentations on giving them actually the stats, 425% return on the wellness programs. But you've not only got to have your EAP and wellness programs, you have got to factor in what the needs are of these caregivers that are taking care of our kids and aging. If you want to compete, because 70% are in your workforce. And I talked to a guy the other day that was actually a recruiter, and he was talking to a CEO, and the CEO said, well, if that caregiver, he said, she told up front, I'm a caregiver, I've got to have this flexibility. And so the recruiter was telling me, he says, the CEO was saying, well, I want somebody at bottom line, I want the job done, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He says, what am I going to tell this CEOs? Well, I mean, you're going to have to give them the stats and let them know 70% of the workforce. Mm-hmm. So this is not something that's going to go away. It's going to get worse because the next 2 decades, we have. Did you hear? The next 2 decades, we've got all these aging and we've got these kids that are chronically on special needs. Yeah. So this social crisis is not something that's going to go away. We have got to adapt to a caring environment.
Exactly. You know, Carolyn, one thing I was thinking about while you were talking about that just a second ago was the fact that, you know, when a person comes in and they get hired for a job and they tell you up front, hey, listen, I'm a caregiver. I don't know how many people will hire a person as a caregiver, because sometimes they don't look necessarily at the experience this person may have, but they look at, well, I got to get a job done. This is the hours it's got to get done. And I can't hire anybody who's a caregiver. That's almost like, you know, you can't hire people because of a certain age. It's almost discriminatory in a way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And actually it is, because they can't help the fact that they're doing what they have to do. You know? Yeah,
they might come. You know, I could see someone maybe coming in that said, I want a part-time position because I'm a caregiver. But I don't really see someone coming in at this point in time because of the awareness issue and of the stigma, and people are afraid it'll hurt them getting the job. I don't see them even disclosing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it would be an odd thing that a caregiver would disclose that they're a caregiver because they want the job, but then they have to figure out, and then the company hires them, and then the company, they didn't know that up front. The caregiver didn't disclose it, but yet they still are qualified to do the job, and they're perhaps a very good worker. So, you're caught in this gap here. So I think you're so right that the information needs to be put out there to the companies. They need to know that going into it. They got to be aware of this whole thing, that this is a big problem out there. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse.
It's because we're already feeling the signs and symptoms of it.
Right.
In the workforce. And, a lot of it, is, they're talking about all of our mental health issues and our employees are burnout. I think it was an AFLAC report that said like 60-something% of our employees are moderately to higher burnout. And
60%?
60-something%. And I don't know how many of that number was caregivers that involve caregivers, but if 70% of caregivers are in the workforce, then it impacts that number.
Oh, wow.
And our kids that are 25 or under are like in the 70% stressed out. And that's for a lot of different reasons too. But we didn't talk about it. But there are young people that are in the home that are called youth caregivers that are helping families take care of like disabled vets or their or their brother or sister that has a birth defect or whatever. We didn't even talk about the youth caregiver impact. And see, that's one more thing that caregiver has to worry about if they've got special needs children or disabled husband and they have other children. They're having to worry about the self-care and the mental health of those other children that are having to do adult things to help them. So that's one more stress on that caregiver that's in that situation. This is a very complex problem that has got to be dealt with in a holistic way.
Wow. Well, Carolyn, I just want to break it down real simple for us. What is actually this Caregiver Wellness, your company? What do you actually go into a company? What do you provide? Tell us what actually you do when you go into a company, and then what type of companies do you like to go into?
Well, we will go to any company that has their doors open, and I'm sure it's probably not a lot of the small companies, but they need to know this too. They need to know it. But middle to larger companies, first thing I do. What we do is we do consulting. I do consulting. I've studied this 8 years, and I am a volunteer worker, and all the funds they pay go directly to promote our nonprofit's mission. And then the nonprofit will sell them or license. We're probably going to license these caregiver advocate business programs to companies. And it is so detailed, even with templates like job descriptions and everything, and a training outline, how they can implement training. That program can be implemented by their top management. It doesn't even have to be me there as a consultant. So that's what we do. And that program that they pay for, license, all those funds go to promote caregiver mental wellness and this mission to make these changes because of this social crisis. So those are the two things we do. We also do speaking engagements in front of big groups. We do training. We do workshops. So we will come in and actually do employee training, either virtual or in person, because you need to put in employee programs, and you need to, from the top, that you need to change your orientation. You need to get more programs into teacher supervisors. And you need to have training programs to build empathetic employees, because where they don't complain about what these people caring for others need, the flexibility. So we even have to build that culture of having empathy.
Absolutely. And Carolyn, you're not just local. You're all around the country. We would do, we can always do virtual. I mean, it can be worked out, whatever the needs are. Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Carolyn, this is a very, very powerful subject that we just don't have a hold on it yet. We don't totally understand it. And it's amazing to me that that God would give you this enlightenment and that you would be, are you one of the few out there doing that right now? Or is there a lot of companies still out there doing that? Or what's happening on your end of the spectrum?
I don't know that anyone, I have not seen where anyone, or I haven't come across that anyone has taken the thousands of hours I took to build this 67-page manual to put in caring environments. And the only reason I could do that is because I had an HR background and I've been a caregiver 18 years. I've lived in the system.
Yeah.
And I know, and so I don't know that there is another company that has written a manual. I know that there are some EAP programs that have caregiver modules to them.
Yes.
But the ones that I've looked at, they don't use all the approaches that I need because I've lived 18 years as a caregiver. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know that they were written by people that have lived it.
Yeah.
So I know what the companies need to do. I know where they're going. You know, one of the things is when we have an EAP program, we hand it out, go, like I talked before, we go to crisis or we go to support. Well, it's going to have to be a lot more in depth than that.
Absolutely. And so, and which is even more gives you more credibility because you've actually lived it. You were in the HR for so many years. You spent thousands of hours working on this program and this manual that you put together. And so you've got the credibility there, Carolyn. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that because because that's so important, because if nobody else is out there doing it, and we're not teaching our companies, we're not teaching our workforce what is really happening. And like you said, we're feeling the symptoms of it now. I mean, I can't imagine where it's going to be in 10 years. I can't imagine how it's going to be affecting companies. We better get on board with something now. We better understand. And I know a lot of big companies that maybe they do coaching programs, where you can go and coach and get coaching and stuff like that. But I don't know of a lot of companies that actually go in there and will, I guess the coaching piece can help a lot with people. I've done coaching before in that kind of environment, so I understand it. But still, it doesn't give it the full spectrum of what I think is really needed. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I feel about it.
Right, and I think that more people will come on board because I've noticed I've been talking about this for 3 years. You know what I'm saying, and it was falling on deaf ears.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you haven't heard anything. A lot of people have not heard anything.
Right.
And so there are organizations now that are bringing teams together to address the crisis for the caregivers in the workforce. And I saw this on LinkedIn the other day, and they're bringing in these different people to talk about the problem. We've already written it because I've done 8 years of study, and I've looked in all kinds of research with all these companies. It's not just companies like AARP and all those. I mean, I've looked at all the corporate numbers, and I've pulled this together, and it just came to me. This is a crisis.
It is a crisis. And I want to remind everybody that's watching the show today, up in your left-hand top corner is a QR code where you can get a hold of Carolyn and her website. And I will tell you, go on there and look it over. Dive into it. See what she's got. Look at some of the modules and things that she's got on there. You will actually get to see exactly what she's doing and how she's doing it. And I would recommend that highly because that is so powerful. And it's going to become a crisis. We're going to get in over our heads if we don't do something about it now. And that's what's concerning. That really is what's concerning. Carolyn, thank you so much for today. Thank you for bringing that awareness to us, because I know it's not out there like it should be. It's just simply not. And I appreciate it so much because you just have been a tremendous guest. You're very knowledgeable. You ran a lot of statistics by us, a lot of numbers by us. And so if you're into that kind of thing, you're going to get a lot out of the website because I know it's all there too. So Carolyn, thank you so much for being here today. I greatly appreciate it and love what you're doing. So join me next week on The Leader's Edge as we welcome James Hammer. Now, James is an AI integration strategist and creator of the Organic Delegation Framework trademark. For an insightful deep dive on how to harness AI without fear, unlocking its true potential to elevate your leadership and transform your business. And just as a reminder, you can find The Leader's Edge on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you find value in these conversations, please subscribe or hit the follow button to stay connected. And I want to say thank you to all of our listeners and friends, because without you, The Leader's Edge would not be possible. I'm so grateful to have you here and so excited to connect with you next time. So have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.